We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, Aura the Informationalist.
Just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like Aura, the informationalist.
How you doing?
Yes, peace and greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Aura the Informationalist, and you're now tuned in to the Network of Awareness podcast radio show. And on today's Truth Seeker Series episode, this is called How to Build Your Business with guest Ernie Martin. And this is actually Ernie's second time around on the same season, which is season 5. Now, for those that don't know, and for those that may know, Ernie is my brother from the same Heavenly Father, from the Most High in Christ. He's also my faithful friend, and he is also an author, an entrepreneur, and a small business owner, a company called Receivable Savvy. And he is an expert in marketing and communications. And he has a book that we're going to discuss today and bring out. It's called Nobody Cares About Your Business. So in this book, we're going to talk a lot about how to grow your business and how to make your business relevant in the market today. And Ernie's going to give some principles, some tips, and guidelines on how to go about doing that and getting you to understand what his book is all about and why you should get it, why it's going to be edifying for you to get, and how it can help you in your entrepreneurial endeavors and the things that you're looking to gain and succeed in, whatever your ventures may be. And to talk a little bit about who Ernie is, he is, like I mentioned, the CEO of Receivable Savvy, a research and content development, and let's look up right here, consultation, helping finance professionals master order to cash, founded in 2015. He also is a graduate from Xavier University out in Louisiana, and Ernie holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in marketing and has acted as a substitute adjunct professor and regularly mentors entrepreneurs and small business owners as they launch and grow their business. And basically what what we're going to also talk about is some of Ernie's experience and how he's gained his knowledge and wisdom in marketing and business. And he's collaborated with numerous Fortune 500 companies, including Delta Airlines, Georgia Pacific, Kimberly-Clark, as well as other organizations such as Center for Disease Center and Control and Prevention. We're going to talk about his relationship with Dr. Faulty. I'm just kidding, people. And also Business Payments Coalition in collaborations with the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. So, without further ado, let's give him a nice warm round of applause to the brother, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ernie Martin. Hey, shalom, brother. And you, by the way, you're on mute, so nobody can hear what you're saying there.
I guess it might help if I take myself off mute, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would help. So welcome to the Network of Awareness for the second time around.
Oh, brother, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me to join you again. Had a great time the first go around. We touched on a number of things about, business and the economy and the world. So thanks for having me back so I can talk about, my experience, the book I just published, and sort of what went into the book in terms of pouring all my experience and things that I've learned as a second time around small business owner. So really excited to get started on this.
Yeah, so am I. And I'm going to pull up the artwork that I put together here. Let me see if I can find it here. Where are you? Of course, when I had it, it was not a problem finding it. I just want to kind of show you what the cover looks like here.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what we got. No, it's here somewhere. Let me just put in the title. No way, don't get lost here. How to... All right, there it goes. So that way, for the viewers, for those that are viewing on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, this is also for you, brothers and sisters. Just give me a second here.
By the way, as you're looking for that and getting it set up, I'm admiring your grand piano in the back of your room over there. So,
thank you very much, sir. Hopefully we can do some music together. You could play the guitar and I'll play the piano.
Hey, there you go. There you go. You can see my guitar in the back for those who are watching, or at least one of the guitars, the electric one.
So I'm going to share the screen now because I finally found the window here. And let's share that. All right. So as you can see, this is Ernie's book, Nobody Cares About Your Business, the 8 Universal Marketing Principles Every Entrepreneur Must Know to Make Customers Love Their Business. Also available on Kindle. By the way, folks, for those that are going to be tuning into this episode, the link to purchasing the book is in the description page, as well as in the pages of the social media handles like YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So it's there for you to click on. Now, this is a question I've been dying to ask. You see this picture here, right? Is this what you call the business metrosexual look? Or is this just is this business professional or business metrosexual? I'm trying to figure out what type of look is this right here?
Yeah. That's a small business person being squashed by the world in essence. And there are a lot of design directions that the person who designed the cover, she and I were going through different things and images that we could use. One where small, tiny person is surrounded by giants, or one person is smothered in an elevator full of tall people, just representing, the fact that these people have small businesses. And really, the world doesn't care about your business. Nobody cares about it. So this is one iteration of people will just step all over your business. Sometimes people are indifferent, oftentimes about your business. So I think that artwork sort of represents that. And it's eye-catching too. So it actually made you ask the question. So it works.
Well, no, I'm glad you gave me that answer, but I was actually talking about the guy, the melanated man under the book. I didn't know if that was business metrosexual or just business casual or business professional. That's the one I was asking about. But
that was a headshot that a friend of mine, because I used to belong to the International Association of Business Communicators here in Atlanta. And, there are a lot of small business owners, including myself, who were part of that. And so we did a swap. I helped him with his business. He helped me he was a photographer and a videographer. So he did a number of great headshots for me. And that was one of them. So it worked out well. I was, suit and tie, golden tie, charcoal gray suit. So he did a great job.
By the way, for those that don't know, that's an inside joke between Ernie and I, because that's a term that when I was at his house for a couple of weeks, just this Passover, I was staying at his house, and that's a term that he used to reference towards me that I haven't heard in about 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, it's an old term.
It's become the common term now, metrosexual.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the metrosexuals out there, the ones that are getting your eyebrows done and your nails done and, your chest waxed and all that other good stuff. So Ernie, let's start off. I'm looking at the comments here. So, Duty of Man, who that is. That is a bond. He said, laugh out loud. And then Ash says, one of Ernie's Illuminati buddies.
Brother.
Oh, man. So
everybody's a comedian these days.
So, Ernie, what, how did it was business and marketing and entrepreneur always something that was in your heart as a child? And if not, or if so, how did that come to be? How did you get inspired to want to get into business and marketing?
Yes, and that's a great question. So the short answer is yes, it always was. But I took a couple of detours. One specific detour I took when I was a child, because since I was 7, I always wanted to be an architect. I had a talent for artistry, drawing, designing buildings. I loved going to New York. My grandfather used to take me to New York all the time, and I loved the skyscrapers. That's not everybody's cup of tea, but it just stirred something in me. And I thought, I want to be an architect. And so from the time I was 7 until the time I was a senior in high school, I knew I was going to be an architect. And I would design these elaborate buildings out of balsa wood. I would put lights in them. I'd have a battery, some wiring, and some little light bulbs so you can turn the light on in the house or the building. And I really knew that was what I was going to do. And at some point, I would have my own architecture firm. So the detour was for a variety of reasons. I decided not to major in architecture, even though I was accepted in a major architecture program at the University of North Carolina. I decided to change my major to psychology. And this is one of the very few things that if I could go back and change it, I would change that and stick with architecture. But was in psychology for 2 years, decided to go to Xavier in Louisiana. That's my father's alma mater. That's not why I went, but it didn't hurt. And so after 2 years of majoring in psychology and suffering through all of it, because all I was thinking about, I can have my own practice and I can build it up. And I was thinking more about business than I was about psychology. And so I had what someone might refer to as a come to Jesus moment, in terms of I could either continue to do poorly because I was doing poorly in school, or I could change my major and do something that I really had a passion about. And so I changed my major to marketing because I really loved advertising too. And there's a creative side to advertising and marketing, print ads, television commercials. And so I changed my major to marketing, and everything just turned around 180 degree. I had a passion for it. I did internships. I was doing, at one point, I was going to school full time and doing 2 internships, one for AT&T and one for another brand new regional mall where they had it's right next to the Superdome. And they held the 1988, and I guess I'm dating myself, the 1988 Republican convention there, which we were a part of. And I got a chance to sort of rub elbows with people in politics. And at the time, that was kind of exciting. And so after I graduated, and Xavier was great at placing us at companies all around the country. Companies came to Xavier looking for Xavier graduates in all kinds of fields, but specifically in marketing as well. So I started a job at a bank holding company in Princeton, New Jersey. So moved from New Orleans up to Princeton, did that for about 3.5 years. Loved the job. Didn't know if I wanted to stay in New Jersey. So I ended up in Atlanta after a while, and the career just really took off after that.
What was the thing that you enjoyed the most about it once you made that switch?
The creativity, really. We had someone from one of the major utilities in the Northeast come down and do a presentation, because companies would always come and present and recruit. And so one utility company, the director of marketing and a couple of people on her staff came down, and they did this great presentation, one of my business classes. And I said, can I sit with you after your last presentation? I just want to pick your brain. And so she said, yeah, sure. So she allowed me to sit with her for like an hour and just pick her brain afterwards. That was really pretty awesome. And so because of that, I love for people who are curious about either marketing or starting their own business or entrepreneurship, to just sit with me and pick my brain. So that was really one of the highlights. There are a lot of highlights, and I could probably spend the next 6 hours talking about different highlights. But that's an early one because of my interest and my passion, and the fact that she gave me the time to sit with her and ask her questions.
If I would have went to college and let alone graduated from high school, which I never did any of those things, I would have definitely got into psychology as a field of getting a degree in. You didn't like psychology, obviously. You wish you would have instead chose to stick with architecture.
Right.
But is there anything that you gained from the things that you learned in taking psychology when you did that was useful and helpful in the marketing and business industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's specifically one of the things that Receivable Savvy does now. One great takeaway that I got from being in psychology for 2 years is how to do research, how to conduct research. Because when you're in psychology and they teach you how to basically do research, how to gather information, and how to do it properly, because anyone can create a questionnaire and a survey, but most people do it incorrectly. And most people influence the outcome of a particular survey or piece of research. And so one of the things that I learned was how to properly construct a questionnaire and a research project. And I took that with me all throughout my career in marketing. And so what we do now is we do research around a particular function of finance called order to cash. And that includes accounts receivable, order management, and all this stuff. And so I'm able to do research specifically targeting certain types of companies, not only in the US, but also in other countries. I have clients in other countries too, and they ask me to do research in a couple of different countries outside of North America, sometimes in Europe, sometimes in South America. And so because of the experience that I've had, and also spending a lot of time with PhDs during my career, refining my insight, my knowledge, and my experience about how to do this, I've gained a lot of insight and a lot of experience, and it all was sparked by psychology. So oddly enough, the subject that sometimes I say I despised it, and it's only for me, because there are a lot of people who are in psychology who do very well, and they should do that, because if that's their calling, then fantastic. It wasn't my calling, but I did take away something from it that now still serves me today.
Wonderful. So, why did you decide to write a book? called Nobody Cares About Your Business?
Yeah. So I'll answer that in two parts, why I decided to write a book and why I title it the way I did. I decided to write the book because I always wanted to. I mean, that's the short answer. A few years ago, back in the late 90s, I was an aspiring novelist, as I was also, building my marketing career. And I wrote a book, a novel that was a great story. I won't go into the story because it's kind of dated now, but I got a tiny bit of interest from an agent, because there are a couple of ways you can have a novel published back then. And this is before really the advent and the expanse availability of the internet. And so you either had to go to a publisher, an agent, or publish it yourself. And so I tried all of those things short of publishing it myself, because that was very expensive back then. So it got a little nibble, but ultimately not a lot of long-term interest. So it never got published. I still have it somewhere. And so I always wanted to write a book. And so as I was working with entrepreneurs, working with small business owners, and less so about my jobs that I had in terms of the large corporations that I work with, but it was really from my conversations and engagement with small business owners and entrepreneurs. And so there were several things that came up over and over and over again. And I thought, I have all this insight and experience from just sitting with people for years, and I should write a book about it. And so I started writing the book about 3 years ago, and I literally wrote the first draft in a weekend, because it was stream of consciousness, just, at the computer typing stuff out. And I sort of, after a couple of edits, sort of massaged it into where it is now. And so why did I decide to call it Nobody Cares About Your Business? I started with another title, something like Make Them Love Your Business or whatever. And that was okay, but it's a very boring title. You could probably throw a rock and hit 20 other titles that are similar to that. And so one of the principles that I listed in the book, which stood out in terms of this would be a great title, was the fact that I have told entrepreneurs and small business owners over and over again over the years that nobody cares about your business. The fact that you launched the business, the fact that you put a shingle outside your door saying we're now open, doesn't mean that people are going to flock to you. I've had people tell me, hey, I've got this idea and I'm going to open my business. And in the first year, I want to make, 500,000, or I want to do, and they may have a great product or a great service, but they don't understand marketing, and they don't understand how to go to market, nor do they understand, and rightly so, because this is not everybody's area of expertise. And so some of these folks, great ideas, great processes, really enthusiastic about their business or their service, but oftentimes small businesses start with selling to people that you know. And so the challenge is, how can you sell to people that you don't know? And so that requires a whole nother set of skills in terms of identifying who your target market is, making sure that whatever you have in terms of a product or service, they actually might want. And then even if they want it, you have to tell them that they should get it. Okay. So you have to go through this whole long process, and every step is worthwhile. And so I wrote the book because I was having all these experiences, and then I titled it Nobody Cares About Your Business, because I was telling people that constantly when they thought that, hey, my mom said it was a great product or it was a great service. I'm like, okay, of course, your college roommate or your spouse will tell you the same thing, but will people you don't know tell you that as well? And so that's why I stuck with that title, Nobody Cares About Your Business.
Now, did it take you 3 years to write the book, or more than that?
No, it took, it really took me a weekend and then a few more months of editing. And then it sat on the shelf for a while. And so I didn't touch it at all for about 2.5 years. And I kept telling myself, I've got to finish the book. I've got to finish the book. And there are probably a lot of aspiring authors out there who have started a book or wanted to, and the idea is sitting on the shelf, and they say, I'll get to it at some point. And so last year I said, I have to make the commitment to finish the book. And I actually did. And so by the time February rolled around of this year, I was in a position where I was able to have it formatted. And one of the beautiful things about where we are today versus where we were in the late 90s when I was trying to write my first novel is we have platforms now where you can self-publish. You can create your masterpiece, and without any cost to you, really, you can upload it to Amazon. You can upload it to Barnes & Noble. You can upload it as a Kindle, as a print on demand. And so that really didn't exist in the publishing industry back in the 90s. But so today you could say, yeah, it took me about 3 years, but it was more a half a year of writing it and then another 2.5 years of procrastinating. It's not really procrastination. I was trying to build the business. And so that took a back seat for a few years, but I'm glad I actually got around to finishing it.
Okay, great. And in your book, in the first chapter, you asked whether people should be entrepreneurs. And why do you ask that question in the first chapter? And what has been your experiences with that?
Yeah. So even before I would get into the whole notion of these are the things that you can do if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner to launch or grow your business, I thought I should, if anyone were to buy this book and they're sort of on the fence in terms of, I think I'm going to start my own business, but I'm not sure, I'm thinking about it, I'm praying about it, I'm asking family and friends, I'm getting counsel about it, but they're not sure. I wanted to start it off by saying, well, you say you want to be an entrepreneur. Do you really want to be an entrepreneur? Here are the things that you're going to face. If you launch a company, you're going to have courage, faith, tenacity, perseverance. You're going to have to look fear in the face on a regular basis and work through that fear. And so I say in the book that a lot of people are not cut out for that. And that's fine because, most people should not be entrepreneurs. Most people should really have a job or do something where if they get a steady paycheck and they know that every week in, week out, whether you have a great week at work or whether you have a so-so week at work, you're still going to get a paycheck. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, assuming you're doing your best and you're being a faithful representative, of Christ, because as a follower of Christ, I think that's important for us to do, regardless of whether we start our own business or are working for someone else. And so, being that ambassador, you should always put your best foot forward and do your best work. So, but most people are best suited for working a job, and hopefully most people are finding jobs or can find jobs that they enjoy, that they love, and we know that. You and I both know that that's not always the case, right? And I've had my experiences of, there was one job in particular, before I took it, I knew I was not going to like it. But I took it anyway because we were at a place where I needed to do whatever I had to do for our household. But for someone to be an entrepreneur, when things come up and you're afraid, when things come up and you're not sure what to do, you've got to get advice, get counsel, pray, do whatever you're able to do to work through that, because you're going to have situations where things come up and you're going to either be unsure, you're going to be afraid, you're going to be timid, but you have to do just the opposite. You have to be fearless sometimes. And there's a difference between fearless and just being dumb or making horribly bad decisions. Being fearless really is doing the tough things that you have to do to start and grow your business, but also having either some advisors, some counselors, or people that you can bounce ideas off of to make sure that you're making the right choices. So not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. A lot of people think it's glamorous. I had a picture of me, and I still get kidded about this because when I went to the UK last year, I happened to have a client in London. And so I took a picture of me and my clients, and we were at dinner. And so somebody might look at that and say, boy, that looks really glamorous. It's wonderful. I want to do the same thing. But what you don't see is all the heartache and the ups and downs, the peaks and the valleys that go into that before you get to a place where you might be able to have a client that's out of town, or you might have a speaking engagement where someone pays for you to fly out somewhere and speak at a conference. And so, I've had those experiences, but that comes with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went in years before people started asking me to come speak, or I had clients in other countries too. So entrepreneurship, it's great for somebody if you have courage, if you have tenacity, if you have a great idea, if you feel that you can no longer work for someone else. And sometimes people get to that place. But if you get to the place where you feel you can no longer work for someone else, and you have a great idea, and you have courage and all this other stuff, and you have faith, then you just might be an entrepreneur. But if you're easily scared or easily afraid, then you probably shouldn't.
Right. What I've learned too in my experiences in business, especially doing stuff on my own, is that no matter how well you describe the ups and downs of what you go through to get to where you're at, or to get to a certain destination that people will see you at and be like, hey, you're so good at what you do, you're so successful, and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
They really won't understand it unless they experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
It just is you can write books on it, and you can give them great descriptions. You could do documentaries on it, and they'll get a lot of great substance, but there's no way they're going to understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what it's like to just go through struggles to get to a certain destination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you had mentioned, people are just scared because especially when I was a manager for a major health insurance company, when I used to interview people and I used to ask them that important question, well, how much money do you want to make this year? Mostly everybody used to say 6 figures, which was highly possible. But then I would actually give them on a calendar what they would have to do from Monday to Saturday every single day, and how many hours they would have to invest and the different things. And then they were like, I got to do all that? and you would be like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, what I realized is that the idea was attracted to them, but not the actual doing of it.
Right.
I mean, because once they realized what they had to do, then it was like, oh, I don't think I want to make that much money. What does it look like to make $50,000 a year?
Right.
You know, and then you can show them a chart for that. And of course, they're going to look at that as more attractive because most people just don't have that relentless drive to go above and beyond to succeed or to gain something that they really want. It's only those people that really want it.
Right.
You have a chapter that's a really interesting chapter in your book. It's called The Principle of Selling Water in the Desert.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So it's actually a catchphrase that I came up with. And so what that means is, going back to whether you should be an entrepreneur, the next step is, okay, let's say you are cut out to be an entrepreneur and you decide, yes, I want to launch my business. I want to put my shingle outside my door and, getting entrepreneurs and small business owners to get past so once you open your business, if there are crickets, and you're like, where is everybody? Where are all the customers? Well, you have to work to get the customers. Okay. And so one of the key things to understand is even if you have a great product or a great service, you still have to work to get clients and customers. And so the catchphrase is sort of in 2 parts. I say that unless, if you decide you want to be an entrepreneur and you launch your own business and you put your shingle outside your door, unless you are selling water to people in the desert or oxygen to people who live underwater, nobody cares about your business. Okay. And the reason for that is those 2 things are essential for life. Okay. So everybody needs, if you're going to be in the desert, what do you need more than anything else? Water. And if you're going to live, Say that. I'm sorry. Say that again.
No, I was agreeing with you. And also what I was thinking is people are actually looking for water in the desert. Right?
Absolutely.
And for oxygen underwater, especially when they run out.
Exactly. How many movies have you seen where there is an underwater scene and there's usually a scene where oxygen is running out for somebody? And so that's one of the highlights of a particular scene in virtually every movie or program where there is underwater action. It could be James Bond. It could be James Cameron's The Abyss. It could be a whole bunch of other things. But everybody at some point is going to run out of oxygen. And then, the scene builds to a crescendo where someone bravely provides the oxygen to the people or the person who needs it. And so,
right.
If you're, I use the iPad as an example. So before the iPad was introduced, most people weren't running around saying, "Hey, I need an iPad." I used to use, and this is again probably dating myself. I used to use a Franklin Covey day timer where I'd write in for every date of the year, my meetings, notes, etc. And then I had a closet full of past years of Franklin Covey pages. Okay. And so it was a great tool, but then I started using a Palm Pilot.
Right.
And so you remember those Palm Pilots where even before it was a phone, I was using that as my date timer. And I had a Franklin Covey date timer with the Palm Pilot in it. And then I think when they turned that into a phone, I had that. And so
the BlackBerry phones. Yeah.
I had a BlackBerry too. And so I think the other one was called a Treo or something like that from Palm Pilot. And I had a BlackBerry. And then Apple came out with the iPad. And I thought, this is great. And they're very good at, or they were very good. They probably still are, even after Steve Jobs left. But he was very good at finding gaps in what people needed and filling those gaps. And so the iPad was one of these things. People didn't know they needed it, but as soon as it was available, people flocked to it. The smartphone is easy because everybody was using a phone at that point. Everybody was using a cellular phone. Those who wanted a phone, you had a phone. And so you could say the smartphone was revolutionary, and it was to some degree, but it's just the next iteration of a cellular phone. The iPad, on the other hand, was revolutionary in that it solved a lot of problems. For me specifically, it allowed me to have the equivalent of a date timer where I could write notes, and I still use it today to write notes with the technology that it offers in longhand. I have calendars, I have to-do lists, and I have a whole bunch of other things, as well as it can surf the internet, it can make phone calls, etc. And so that was great. And so it certainly filled a particular need for people. And sometimes people don't know they have a need, until you come out with the product. But if you don't have a product or service that is obviously needed like that, you can still be successful. It could be a want. It could be a desire that people have. Even when it's a want and it's a desire, you still have to do those things. You still have to lay the groundwork to target your audience, share your message, and then bring them in to where they make a decision to buy your product or your service. And so that's what I mean by, selling water to people in the desert. Unless you're doing that, because again, if you showed up with some water in the desert and people needed water, you wouldn't have to market anything. They would just flock to you because they need it. But because that's not the world we live in for most products and services, you have to market it to a lot of people, and you have to be very good at it. And you have to do something where I refer to it as carving out real estate in somebody's mind. Okay, so today in 2023, think how far we've come with all the stimuli that we have. We had, when we were growing up, how many television stations that we had? If you didn't have cable, you probably had 5 or 6 stations, 3 locals, the 3 networks, and then maybe public broadcasting, and then maybe a couple of other things. And then cable came along, and now we've got streaming services. So you've literally got hundreds, if not thousands, of channels to choose from. Everybody's trying to vie for real estate in your mind. Okay. And you as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, you're no different. You have to carve out a memory. You have to carve out a piece of real estate in someone's mind to say, this is why you should buy my product or service. And you've got to tell them that message over and over and over again. Okay. One time is just not enough. If you had a new business and all you did was create a Super Bowl ad, that might create some buzz for a little while, but you're going to have to continue to market, communicate, and share your message with your target audience.
You have you talk about a lot of different methods and principles in regards to how to grow your business. And of course, like you were mentioning, how to make it attractive, how to make it to where it stands out amongst a sea of other businesses within a particular industry. You have a lot of people that teach about niche marketing, where you have to have a niche that you can get control over, in the sense that that's your niche and that's what people are going to recognize you by, and you become the authority in that niche, whatever it may be. You talk about branding, you talk about website development, and also about the promotion and marketing of your business. So can you let the listeners know a little bit about each of those things and those topics and principles in your book, and talk about it a little bit on each one?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, I've got two different chapters on branding. One is developing an effective brand, and the other one is the principle of brand identity. Okay, so let's talk about what is a brand. A brand is, and when people think about a brand, sometimes they think about, oh, that's a logo. But a brand is, and really you can have a product, service brand. You can even have a personal brand. Okay, but people think of a brand as just a logo. A brand is a set of attributes that you associate and others associate with your product, your company, or your service. Okay, and so it takes some forethought to build a really good brand, because the process of building a brand, you also have to keep in mind positioning. Okay, and so that goes back to carving out real estate in someone's mind. So let's use an example of a pizza delivery service. If you're a company that makes pizza for the masses and you also deliver, you've got to think, okay, who else is in this game? Who else is operating in the landscape in this environment? You've got Domino's, of course. You've got Papa John's. You've got Pizza Hut. You've got some smaller players like you've got Marco's in some markets. You've got Johnny's New York Pizza in other markets, and then you have some other local companies. And so, if Orra said, if you said, I'm going to start Orra's Exceptional Pizza, and you want to launch it and you want to grow your business and you want it to be successful, what you have to do is you have to decide, out of all these players in the marketplace, where do I fit best? Do you fit best with great ingredients? Well, Papa John says, they've sort of carved out that little niche of better ingredients, better pizza. Domino's has gone through a couple of iterations because people used to think their pizza was cardboard with ketchup on it. And so, but they went through a process a few years ago where they reinvented themselves. And so now they're not necessarily known as that. Pizza Hut was sort of the big guy on the block because it had dine-in. You had the dine-in experience as well as delivery. Now they're primarily just delivery. And they started the pan pizza, which, that's just basically a Chicago style pizza or other type of pizza that's a deep dish, but they brought it to the masses. And so you've got to figure out, okay, where is Orra's Exceptional Pizza going to fit in? Should I say better ingredients? Probably not, because, Papa John's does it. Should I be sort of the pizza to the masses? I think Domino's does that, and they used to do the delivery in 30 minutes or less. They don't do that anymore for different reasons. You could say, hey, you want really luscious deep dish pizzas. Well, Pizza Hut sort of does that. So you have to come up with a set of attributes that's unique to Orra's Exceptional Pizza. Okay. And one might be, your crust tastes better than anybody else's crust. Okay. All the other ingredients might be the same, but your crust is like gourmet crust made with New York water, or that comes from New York, because that makes a difference, right? And so you may use that as a differentiator. You may also use another kind of differentiator. You may say, hey, we do large pizzas, but we do really great, fantastic, small personal pizzas too, unlike anybody else. That could be a key differentiator. And so these things are things that you can do where people would start associating Orra's Exceptional Pizza with some of these attributes. And then you have to build on that by creating a brand. And that brand is not just your logo, but it's your tagline. It's what you want people to remember you by, whether it's, I list some of the things in the brand development chapter where I say, there's an exercise you go through, is your brand friendly? Is it informative? Is it edgy? Is it, something else? And so you have to choose what you want your brand to be, and then start doing those things to associate those principles with your brand.
Yeah. Or I can have a target market. I can call it, I can target market a specific demographic. I could call it Orra's Metrosexual Pizza.
Yeah. That may be, they may have a lot of money, but that's like a tiny, tiny target audience, a tiny niche. So you're going to have to sell them 50 pizzas a month in order to have them support your business. But the principle you mentioned is correct, because once you develop your brand and you decide I want to fit within these parameters to fill this gap, then you go to determining who your target audience is. And it may be metrosexuals, it may be college students primarily, it may be families, it may be people who are low income, it may be people who are upper income, so all those things fall into the whole notion of branding and positioning and sort of where you want your company and your brand to fit in the big picture scheme of things.
Right. So what about some of the other things that I mentioned that you talk about? So let's talk about website development. What can you talk about, say about that?
Yeah, so it's obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, creating a website has become easier and easier, and it gets easier every year. But you have several different options. You've got, and we know a couple of people that have that use different options. Some people use Wix or Squarespace if you want to have a website that is either e-commerce or just an online brochure. If you want to have a website that is primarily e-commerce and you want it to be what I refer to as a turnkey solution, where you don't have to do much building from scratch yourself, you can use what's the solution that's on the tip of my tongue?
You mean GoDaddy?
Not GoDaddy. Let's see. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I hate when you're trying to remember a particular solution. As a matter of fact, hold on. Let me go to the book because it's in the book. Let's see. It is. Bear with me for a second. Okay. Okay, brand identity. And then when you get to the website stuff, then it is, I'm going to kick myself for.
Well, that's all right. I mean,
yeah.
So
it's one of these things that's on the tip of my tongue, and
so it's basically the website that's kind of like already set up for you, right? Where you don't have to do much. Yeah,
it's I mentioned Wix, I mentioned Squarespace, and And then there are, let's see.
It's kind of like how I have my websites for my podcast and everything. I actually have a web developer doing the DNS formatting for me for the Council on Christ Relations podcast while we're talking right now. So hopefully the pending status will be complete by the time this evening. Right.
Yeah, it's people are going to know what it is if I describe it. It's a website. So you've got Wix, you've got Squarespace. You can go to GoDaddy.
Are you talking about Linktree?
That's not it, but that's one of the.
I like the way Linktree's set up. I'm thinking about getting one myself. Shopify. Okay.
Was what I was trying to remember. Okay.
Shopify.
So Shopify is an alternative. It's one of several solutions. Okay. So you can. So I break the chapter down into you can do it yourself or you can hire a developer. Okay. So those are the two basic ways you can create a website. Do it yourself. You're going to have the Wix, the Squarespace. You're going to have the Shopify, even though there are resources that can help you tailor those platforms also. So you can use what is referred to as the out-of-the-box solution for website development, or you can use the out-of-the-box and tailor it, but you're going to have to hire a developer to tailor it for you. Okay, so you've got those two options. If you were to do complete tailoring, sort of almost from the ground up, then you're getting into things like e-commerce sites. You're getting into websites that are uniquely built to handle your product or your service. You're looking at WordPress. You're looking at other solutions that handle e-commerce capability and offer e-commerce capability. And so that allows you to, under those circumstances, most people who have, say, for example, a WordPress site, you can use a WordPress template, but if you want it to do anything other than just house information that people can just look at, you're likely going to have to either hire a developer or make tweaks to it yourself if you know how to do it. I use a WordPress site, and I have developers that I've used for several years who are good at tailoring the site specifically for what I need. So I've got information that's free, but it's behind the firewall. You can register and use and get access to it. And then I have information that's behind the firewall and it's not free. It's you sign up for a subscription to access that information. And so I'm not well versed enough to, nor do I want to spend the time becoming well versed enough to program a WordPress site. But what I can do and what people can do is they can go in and use the content management system and add pages, make changes to your pages, et cetera. And so one critical component that I mentioned in the chapter when someone is looking to build a website, and this is helpful even if whether you're using Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, or WordPress, or something even more complex, is you should have a requirements document. And a requirements document lays out exactly what it is that you want your website to do, what you want it to be, et cetera. And so I'm just going to read down from the list I have here. General website information. How's your website going to be used? Whether it will be a single language, multi-language, where should the logo be? Should you have cookie permissions, which now everybody has to have cookie permissions, especially if your website is accessible in Europe. And then the suggested pages, home page, about us page, contact us page. And then you should identify who your audience is, as well as what your budget is. Some people have a budget of $100. You can build a website for $100 if you want. You can use Squarespace or Wix, and for just a few dollars, you can have a website built, and you just pay a slightly higher monthly fee for that, compared to if you were building it from scratch yourself or using WordPress. But Wix and Squarespace, they provide a great service because a lot of people don't want to get involved in a lot of heavy lifting regarding their website. Same thing with Shopify. Those things are fairly turnkey, and for a few bucks, you can create a regular informational website or an e-commerce site and just pay a slightly higher monthly fee because you're paying for the site itself as well as the hosting, et cetera. And then other information such as how do you want your visitors to interact? How do you want to edit and make updates? Your sitemap for navigation, that's always important. That helps with SEO and for search engines to crawl your website effectively. You should have a sitemap. How you want it to be styled, designed, what kind of security you want, where you want it hosted. Again, on sites that are like Wix and Squarespace, that's already decided for you. They host it for you. If you have a WordPress site, you then have to decide where you want to host it. And there are a plethora of hosting solutions that handle WordPress sites. And so one of the final piece in a requirements document is what websites do you like that you would like to replicate? So you may have websites that you visit on a regular basis and you either like the way they look or you like the navigation to it or you like the experience. If you want to incorporate some of those principles in your website, then that should be part of your requirements document. So this requirements document is helpful for you if you're just doing yourself. It's always helpful to have that as a guide, as a roadmap. It's critically important and necessary if you're using a developer because they will ask you, well, what do you want your site to do? And some people will say, I just wanted to do this and this and have a conversation about it. Well, you should really put everything in writing. And so I'm a big believer in is if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And so
right. That's
the website component. And then you also mentioned promoting your business, the sixth chapter. And that's the longest chapter because in that chapter, I go through a lot of things. And really, that's kind of the meat of the whole book because it talks about marketing. And it talks about whether you hire a marketing expert or whether you do some of the marketing yourself. And if you hire one, I give you the pros and cons. I actually share with you and give you a process and a roadmap as to how you should identify, look for, and engage a marketing expert, what questions to ask, et cetera. But if you do it yourself, I give you a roadmap as to if you want to do it yourself, these are the things you want to keep in mind in order to promote your business. And I'll give you an example. And so I had this conversation with someone a few days ago that you'll usually hear someone say if they're starting a business, hey, I want to create a logo. Okay. I'm a big fan of, and it's not because I get anything out of it, but I'm a big fan of, it's great if you want your business to be substantial, use an expert, use someone who does logos for a living, use someone who is well-versed in doing that. You can always do your logo yourself, but here's what you run into. So if you create a logo, you have to keep these things in mind. You have to make sure that it resonates on your website or online. If you have stationery or business cards, although a lot of people don't have that these days, but if you decide you want to create a business card, it should look great on your business card as well. And so when it's printed, certain things have to be kept in mind, such as PMS colors and bleed and things of that nature. So your website logo should look exactly like your business card logo in terms of the text, in terms of the color, et cetera. And so when you are using colors for websites, it's what is referred to as HEX. And then if you're using colors for print production, it's typically Pantone colors. And so those are different numbers. And so, but you have to align the different numbers to make sure you're getting the same representation online and on your business card. And if you decide, hey, I want t-shirts and mugs and hats and other paraphernalia, you're likely going to have a different PMS color in order to make sure your logos match online, in print, and on merchandise too. So those are things that most people don't know to do. But, having done this, going back to my first job out of college, I learned that stuff and it's like, oh, it's still very relevant and still very important today. So that's another nugget of information that's included in the book and tells you how to go about choosing it, which websites to go to find a logo expert, whether it's a LogoWorks, whether it's Fiverr, whether it's Upwork or something like that. And you can usually have a logo made for the low end for a really good logo. You can hire somebody to do it for $100, $200, max. You can probably find someone for $50 or $25, but then you get what you pay for. But if you really want a good logo that you can use across those different channels and mediums, you're probably going to pay at least starting out $100 to $200 on one of those Fiverr, Upwork, or LogoWorks solutions.
Right. Yeah. Because I've had people pay me about $100 for logos I created for them.
Right.
So my last question for you is, what do you hope people get from reading your book, Nobody Cares About Your Business?
Yeah, I hope it provides insight and it opens their eyes. I hope it opens the eyes of entrepreneurs and small business owners, that they know that, and there are a lot of small businesses out there who are just, cranking along, and they're not doing really any marketing or anything like that. They just happen to be what I refer to as fortunate. Okay. Most people don't fall into that category. Most small businesses, most entrepreneurs do not fall into that category. So what's important is that you take some of these principles and either understand them so that if you do get to a place where you're hiring a marketing expert or an agency, you at least know how to speak the language. Okay. Or if you decide you want to do it yourself, and that's something you want to hire somebody to do some of that in-house. If you want to hire, your cousin part-time to handle some of your marketing, and your cousin may be in school or just a recent graduate, a lot of information that's contained in this book is stuff that it's difficult to learn that stuff in a year or two, across all these different channels, across all these different disciplines, because I also include social media, public relations, and a few other things too. So it's a great tool for entrepreneurs, small business owners to either understand if they hire an expert, or to take some of the steps that I provided that they can then follow, or their cousin, if they hire their cousin to do it, they can follow in order to up their marketing game, so to speak. So I sometimes refer to it as a cheat sheet, because sometimes when I speak to people about marketing, people say, oh, there's a lot of BS in marketing. It's all fluff, et cetera. And unfortunately, there is some truth to that. There are a lot of people who are, a small business who just needs some guidance and a simple marketing plan. An agency might come to them and say, okay, you need this big sledgehammer, and all you need is really just a little hammer, a little pickaxe, but they try to provide this big, huge anvil or this huge mallet, and they don't need that much. So then people get turned off by marketing, because I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with say, oh, they were charging me too much, and they wanted this and they wanted that, and I just couldn't afford it. And it really boils down to affordability too. So there are a lot of smaller agencies out there, or there are a lot of consultants who will work with you for a lot less than a full-fledged agency will. And so, but even if you go that route, it's helpful to read this book. So you'll have some understanding as to what they're saying, or you might be able to make some suggestions or bounce things off of them. So you'll basically be a little more equipped going forward.
Absolutely. And before we wrap this up, and I thank you for coming on the show, what's the last thing you want to leave the listeners with that are tuned in, and those that are going to be downloading the show after this live broadcast?
Well, the first thing is obviously go to Amazon and download the book, or as a Kindle, or buy the paperback. So it's available in paperback and Kindle, and it's very inexpensive. Anybody can buy it. It's for less than what you would pay for a lunch during the week. So it's a real easy read. It's something that, again, I try to map out step by step what people should do. I get rid of all the fluff. And it's just, I cut to the chase in short. And so that's the first suggestion is buy the book. And then the other thing I would leave your audience with is know that marketing is not something where you throw up your hands and you say, I just can't do it. Because anybody can do it if they have the right attitude and the right information. And so I hope I provided the information in this cut to the chase cheat sheet of a book that explains a lot of detail about what you need to know regarding marketing your business or your entrepreneurial dreams.
Well, that's great. Yeah, especially in today's society, everybody likes a little cheat sheet. The microwave society wants to get to where they're going fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, brother. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the Network of Awareness. For those that are tuned in, definitely get the book, Nobody Cares About Your Business, on Amazon, Kindle, and there's different ways you can get it. So definitely order the book. The website is on the description page for all the different sites that we're broadcasting off. And, thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me again. I had a great time talking about all this stuff with you.
Absolutely. So stick around for a moment while I end this, and then I'll be right back with you. So, brothers and sisters, let me just...
Ordinary people chasing stars, stop and wonder who they really are, but the circles keep on closing around them.
So, brothers and sisters, I want to say peace, love, and light. Thank you for tuning into this live broadcast. And when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. Don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, brothers and sisters, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. And when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. So be present. Be present in what you're doing. Be present in your business, because at the end of the day, nobody cares about your business more than you do. And if you want people to care about your business, like Ernie said, there are going to be certain things that you need to do and that you have to stick to and stay disciplined to. So this is Orrra the Informationalist with Brother Ernie Martin, saying peace, love, and light, and all praise to the Most High. Shalom, brothers and sisters.